correctly.
All right, man. So let's jump into this.
Okay.
We got JT Barnett here on the Fear of Being Average podcast, episode 28. So we're rolling here, man. Glad to have you on. So for people that don't know, JT and I connected. He's out of Cali, but he's a former professional hockey player, turned entrepreneur. So a guy who lives and breathes health and wellness, and living a passion-filled life. So I'm excited just to kind of get some insight into the things that you've been working on, because I think transitioning from any field into another field is a difficult transition, and to do it in terms of like a more passion-filled avenue is admirable, because a lot of people, there's a lot of things preventing us from doing that, right? So I'm excited to kind of hear your story a bit, the things that you're working on, and then the practices and rituals and habits you embark on, right? You're someone that a lot of people can learn from, so I'm excited to hear about it, man. So let's talk a little bit off the bat. We could dive into a whole bunch. We only got so much time today, but you transitioning out of hockey, because again, you retired fairly early from hockey, and then getting into the entrepreneurial world. So give us a little bit of insight into how that transition was and your story behind that.
Yeah, bro. Well, first, thank you for having me. Obviously, we go back a little bit, so this is great to catch up again. So yeah, I think that introduction was great. I played professional hockey for 6 years. I actually grew up playing in California and Arizona, and then played in juniors in Canada, and then played pro throughout the minors in the US, and then ended up playing actually overseas in Russia and in France. And when I retired because of injuries. And so I was 26 when I was retiring, and that's obviously a very early age for anybody to be retiring. Even professional athletes, usually you go about 10 more years longer. I probably could have gone longer, but it was just the injuries at that point were something that I was like, do I want to keep doing this? And with the risk of this being something that I have to deal with the rest of my life. And I was at the point in my career where I was like, I think I'm ready to transition into something else. So when I got done playing, I started creating content as a quote unquote like fitness influencer. My girlfriend at the time was already creating content then. And so in influencer fitness world. And so I started filming my own workouts and my stick handling. So I was still doing a little bit of hockey. I was retired, but I was coaching kids. And so I was still filming like stick handling and different like hockey training I was doing. And I was able to work with some brands through my like influencer stuff. And they were brands that I actually ended up like implementing into my own life and into my day to day. And so sitting there and wondering like, how could we get more of me and my girlfriend, more of our friends to be interested in these brands? We came up with the idea of throwing a party, but instead of it being alcohol, there would be all things that benefited you. So we would reach out to the brands that were within like, health and wellness of protein or of supplements or of juices or of different types of therapy, whether it's like massage therapy or cryotherapy or IV therapy. We basically just brought all of these brands together and then would bring all of our friends into one place to be able to try all these different things and, do those different modalities and implement those practices into their life. So that was so for me, I went from being full hockey player to really not knowing what I was doing, but just kind of like documenting my day-to-day life. And the transition was super tough. Obviously, like for anybody, like you said, switching out of something is not easy. And for me, I went through a ton of different stages of like really not knowing how to handle the emotions, to going to therapy, which helped me immensely, to like looking back at my past and like really like understanding things that I went through and like how they were affecting me day to day, and like then being able to like work on those. But it all led me to like documenting all of it and just like putting myself out there and like putting content out. And then that led me to my entrepreneurial beginning of my entrepreneurial ventures into what we call Reset.
Nice, man. Nice. So what was what was the biggest takeaway out of therapy? Because I know it's a super beneficial, obviously, practice for someone to dive into. So what did you get out, and what were you kind of looking or hoping for going into therapy?
So many, I mean, there's so many things that were beneficial about it. Like, I would say the biggest thing for me is looking at my past and looking at how my past is affecting me now. I think we all go through shit in our lives. Everybody that's listening to this will have gone through something or another. I never personally went through, like, when you think of trauma, I never went through anything that people would immediately think of. Like, that was just like insanely, overwhelmingly over the top. But everybody just goes through hard things and they affect them differently. And so for me, I had things that like affected me, and they were like getting cut from teams, not playing the amount that I wanted, having coaches that were hard, just like every normal everyday things that people go through. But as an athlete, you don't pay attention to those feelings. You almost have to not suppress them necessarily, but just like you got to get through them to the next day. So you don't have a lot of time to like manage your feelings when you're a professional athlete. So when you're done with that and you have all the time in the world, a lot of that stuff just comes up. So for me, it was like looking back at, in therapy, was like looking back at my past, seeing how that stuff is affecting me on a day to day, seeing what like subconsciously is playing out within me that like I can work on and like look to like rewrite or like redo in the way that I want, so that I'm creating the life and living the life that I want to be living, rather than living the life that is based off of things that have happened in my past. So, I mean, I'm a huge person for anybody to go to therapy, or, you know, I think everybody's therapy is different. I don't think that necessarily going and sitting and talking to someone is some people it's process it on their own. Some people it's music or art. Some people it's writing. Some people it's meditation. You know, therapy is different for everybody. But for me, I think what was most impactful was going and like voicing all of the things that I was feeling and thinking and like that were like stirring within me, with a person that's been there and has done it and like is a professional in that, and her to just be like, this is what's going on, let's work through was really beneficial for me.
Yeah, it's a tough thing, right? I think sometimes people I don't know, they may look at athletes a certain way to be like, well, like what kind of issues could they have? Like you said, they're kind of those underlying issues. But when you have an identity for so long of having that like structure and that connection with team and traveling, you don't really think about much. You're kind of just like on the go constantly, like you're training for something, right? Then all of a sudden, all of that goes away and you're stuck in this little like bubble of like, shit, like what do I actually do now? Like, am I like, what do I train for? Like, what's my life's purpose? Like, it's a big thing to transition out of, right? So it's nice that you kind of dove in there and found that way out. But so going in, did you have an idea? Like, obviously you grew up being an athlete. Were you thinking like, okay, like the thing I'm most passionate about is health and wellness, and that's going to be the kind of field I want to dive into? Was that just kind of like a natural transition for you?
No, dude. So my me transitioning out of hockey was almost just like, I was at the point with hockey where I was just like, I'm ready to move on to something else because this isn't giving me what I want from it anymore. You know, I think like everything in life is relationships. And so I think like my relationship with hockey was, I think most people with sports, if you don't reach that level that you want to be at, like when I knew that I wasn't making the NHL and going to be in the NHL, I think that my like relationship with hockey just changed a little bit. And yes, there was still like a lot of part of me that was like, I want to keep playing this forever because I love the game. But it was also like, is that realistic? Do I really want to do that? Or is there other things out there that I want to pursue that I can find, that I can reach, that I can like strive to achieve something in, that I will feel like accomplished? And so when I was retiring with hockey, there wasn't anything specific that I wanted to do. I just knew it was going to be something in social media because I've always been the guy on my team that was very, very active on social media. I was doing Instagram when I was young. The day it came out, I was getting suspended on my teams for having a Tumblr. I was just very like socially connected. And so when I got done with playing, as I said, my girlfriend was already doing influencer stuff, and that was right when Instagram was starting to be like a thing, that influencers were actually a thing. And so when I got done with it, I didn't really know that I was going to go and like go and try to be an influencer, but I just knew that I wanted to start doing more video on my platform. So one thing led me to another. I took it day by day and slowly started building up like the online fitness plateau.
So what was the driving factor behind it? I know you obviously said you liked and you enjoyed the process, but like, what did you enjoy about it? Was it like the connection to people? Was it kind of sharing insight into your life?
With yeah, behind like my personal thing was more just like uh, I wanted to show people that they can be healthy and be active and live a 360-degree fulfilling life within wellness, and that it didn't have to look like being a bodybuilder or being so drastic, because at this time I was coming out of being an athlete and was, now I was living, I was an everyday person. I was, trying to work a 9 to 5 hours, or, not necessarily a 9 to 5 job, but I was trying to work a normal schedule. I was waking up, I was having to fit in workouts before my work. I was, hanging out with people after work. So I was living a typical everyday life, and I just wanted to showcase how you can try and be your best while still doing that. And for me, it came from on Instagram. I think the only people I could really find that were showing that same kind of lifestyle were like bodybuilders, or actors, or professional athletes. And so I wanted to try and like bridge that gap between like the professional athlete and the everyday athlete, and show that you can still live like that same motto and the same kind of elements within both.
So at the time, were you working a job like at hockey? Did you find something part-time? Or did you kind of dive into something while you were building this? Or is it more like, okay, man, I have some savings backed up. I have time on my hands. I'm still a young kid.
Personal training. So that's what I still do is like, right when I retired, I started doing coaching.
Yeah.
So I would do, I would like coach kids, like a youth team. And then I would come back, I would do some personal training at my house. So I would have a client at my house, and then I would work on like, entrepreneurial stuff. That's still what I do right now. Now I enjoy, at that time, I really didn't even enjoy personal training that much. I just liked working out with friends, and really my clients were my friends. Now I'm at the point where I have clients that I really do enjoy the personal training and like taking somebody from A to B, A to Z, whatever. But at that time it was just like, look, I gotta find ways to make money. I wasn't fortunate enough to like retire from hockey and be like, I have X amount saved that I was able to put aside. It was really, for me, it was just like, I'm not making a ton, but I know that this is the right move, and I got to start somewhere. So this is the right move for me. And then like, as I've gone along, I've just like find ways to make it work.
Yes, it's funny because I think everyone has a story, right? Everyone has a narrative in terms of why they can't do something, right? Maybe they're in that situation where they have been at a job for so long, and they have security and they have comfort, and now they have kids and they have responsibilities, and that prevents them from working on said side hustle. So what was your relationship with the idea of, I guess, fear? Because I think fear is a big thing. Anytime someone's doing down like an entrepreneurial path, they have to embrace some form of fear in terms of uncertainty, discomfort, maybe personal judgment. Like you might put your story out there for everyone to see, and you might get nothing back, and that's detrimental, right? Just from like a personal, a human being standpoint. So what was your relationship with fear? How did you kind of disconnect being like scared of that and being more excited behind the opportunity to grow?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing for me was, again, like when I learned going into my past, it was like everything that I was feeling, all of the fear and stuff, had come from ways that I was taught to react to certain things. And so, for me, when I understood that, when I really grasped the fact that like you can overcome so many things if you do get past that fear, it was just like, I have to do this. And so then for me, I feel like the practice with business and with relationships and with communication with anybody, the biggest thing for me has been like learning to handle that emotion, to feel that fear, like to still feel it, and to keep going anyway, like to keep going past that, to be able to handle it, to be able to be the best that you can be regardless of feeling that fear. Because there's never going to be a time, I feel personally, I don't think that there's ever going to be a time where where you have no fear. And I don't feel like that's a thing to strive for, is to have no fear. It's to be able to know that there is fear there, but to not get too roped into it to where you can't do the thing that you set out to do, or to where it keeps you in the place that you don't want to be in.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because we're always like, I think people get to the point where they don't want to have any fear before they make the jump, right? It's like, I want to become a public speaker, so I want to become so good at home where I'm so confident that I have no fear at all before I step on stage. Like, that's not how life works, right? Like,
bro, I literally was saying so I do like a vlog, and I was literally saying before this into the camera, like, every time that I sit down to do a podcast, I did a live, Instagram live the other day. Every single time I sit down and I'm like nervous and I'm like fearful and I'm like, I don't even know where this comes from. Like, there's nothing bad's going to come out of this interaction. Nothing bad's going to come out of me going on live and talking. Like, nobody's going to sit there and be like, you know, wherever my mind goes. But like, you still have that feeling. And so like pushing through that, and I would assume, I know that you do a lot more public speaking. I would love to get there at some point. I'm just kind of embarking on that. But I would assume that as time goes on and the more that you do it, the less of that fear you get. But to like think that at any starting point, you're going to go into something that is somewhat challenging, and to have no fear, I don't feel is like possible.
yeah, it's over. You're right. Over time, you slowly kind of break down those barriers of fear. So like, maybe fear's at a 10 when you first start, and then years go on, months go on, whatever the case is, and like, it slowly chips away. But like, that fear isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like, it's like that fight or flight. Like, you want to have a little bit of like anxiety and nervousness and excitement behind what you're doing, because it keeps you connected and engaged to what you're actually working on, rather than just be like so complacent and stagnant towards what you're doing that you don't have any feeling. If you don't have that feeling there, you know, like, I just don't think it's one of those things that you should strive for. It should be to get more comfortable within the face of fear, become more courageous in the face of fear, but not to say I want to only pursue X, Y, and Z when that fear is dismissed and it's eliminated, because that's never going to get there. And if you wait for that, guess what? You're going to stay right where you are year after year, because you're waiting for the perfect time. And I think you and I both being trainers and coaches, how many times have you heard like people waiting for the perfect time to get in shape, right? They're waiting to get into shape before they train with you. And you're like, what does that even make any sense? Like, you're waiting to get in shape before you train with a trainer. It's like, those things, like, that's a disconnect, right?
Totally. You got to start somewhere. And exactly how you said it, like, you have to start somewhere, and it shouldn't be your goal to start where there's no fear or where it's the perfect moment, because there isn't a perfect moment. There's always going to be the little bit better you could be, the little bit later you could start. Just start now. Just start doing it, and start doing it with the fear. And eventually, like you said, those barriers break down. You get a little bit better. You start getting some confidence, and then you get into that flow where you're like, damn, look at how far I've come from when I was at step 1 and I went with that fear, and now I'm at, you know, step 10 and I don't have nearly as much fear, and I actually really enjoy this moment now. You know, that gap only starts if you go with the fear.
Yeah, and we all know, like, fear is a human biological feeling and emotion that we have in our body, right? It prevents us from getting into very dangerous situations. But I have this like theory and concept I'm going to play by you right here. Because for me, it's like, I want to try to eliminate that fear as fast as possible. Sorry, not eliminate it, but reduce that fear as fast as possible. And what I've seen as you know, a fitness consultant and advisor, and then even with my own journeys of like taking on, you and I talked about my 365-day challenge. Every month, it was a new sport that I was completely out of my element. But the setting was, I would do that thing every day for 30 days. Now, I get that's in a very extreme example, but I kind of have the idea of a 14-day, you know, go at it program, in terms of, you want to get to the point where you feel a lot more comfortable, you reduce anxiety, you have better connections, and you have more confidence within that new environment. So I like the idea. I think a healthy approach is to dive into something rather than dip your toe into it, at least early on. I know you can't keep up 14 days in a row for a year, and it can't be a 365-day thing necessarily. But I do think early on, it benefits you and behooves you to actually jump into something, really commit to it, and realize this is going to suck. 14 days is something that I don't know, that I'm very foreign to, that's going to be very uncomfortable. Those 14 days are going to be not a very fun, enjoying experience, but the development and the growth that you force yourself to do within those 14 days basically adds up to like 2 months of training in that given environment. And within those 14 days, you can just speed up the process at such a high degree. So for me, when I hear people, I did it, right? I saw people come into jiu-jitsu class with me, and I was going every day, and they would go every 3 days. And then what happens? On my 3rd day, it's their 2nd day. On my 6th day, it's their 3rd day. On my 9th day, it's their 3rd day. And the math just keeps going. By my 14th day, they've been there 4 times, and every day for them is like Groundhog Day, right? Every day is a reintroduction to the day one where they have no skill, they have no confidence, they don't know anybody there. What the hell do you think is going to happen? You're going to want to get the hell out of there. By the time I'm done 14 days, all that has been progressed and accelerated. So what is your take on the idea of enhancing development to then reduce the fear?
Yeah, bro. I mean, I think it's like, I think of it like kind of like a boot camp. Like, I think if you're, I think first, I think self-awareness goes into it, because I think there's obviously some people that it isn't the right thing because they get too overwhelmed and by day 3 they're out. But I do think that for the people that are really dedicated and really do want to get past it, and it is a big goal for them, I do think that diving in can be super beneficial. I mean, my mind just went to like public speaking and just thinking, like, for me, I'm like, damn, I would love to do like a 14-day, every single day I'm talking in front of like 3, then 5, then 12, then da-da-da-da, whatever. Because it's like, you know, if I were to do it that way, I might jump in at 3 people and it still would be fearful, and I still would be like, this is challenging. But then I would have a week off, and in that week off, I'd get comfortable again. And I'd be like, damn, I don't really, let's go back to 3 people. But, if it's like boom, 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 it's the same thing as a boot camp. Go hard for a week, 2 weeks, whatever. And then after that, just the amount that you've gone could be incrementally more steps than if you just take it, slowly. So I completely agree.
Yeah, I've just seen it in practice so much in terms of when I do the 3-day swing where I'm in there every 3 days, like you just don't develop the confidence, right? It just takes so long. And like, as a professional athlete and doing what you do now, like consistency is king. Like it's repetition.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure even building your brand, it's just, you got to be online. You got to show your face every day. You need to post, you need to do shit.
Huge.
So let's jump into a little bit onto your reset. Cause I know we talked a little bit about, you kind of gave a highlight of it. Talk about what reset's all about. I know you just kind of broke it down into like the things that were there. How often do you put these things on? I know obviously right now, because reset is more of an event, had to take a back seat due to COVID. But what is your big picture of reset, and then also your hockey media brand and what you want to do with that?
Dope. So basically, yeah, like I was saying before, just to give everybody a whole overview of it, like reset, what we do is we put on events, in-person events that bring together brands that are emerging or hot right now with the consumer. And so they get to meet and do something that will benefit them in the long run. So my 4 pillars for reset, the 4 things that our brand is basically based around, is training, recovery, mindset, and nutrition. And those 4 things come from me training at a place in Scottsdale that I worked out at while I was a hockey player that had very similar pillars. And same with a lot of gyms in the country have very similar pillars to those 4. And those are just 4 things that I think for me, for performance, those are 4 things that I have to be dialed in with. And if I do take care of those 4 things, obviously those can break down into a little bit more, but if I take care of those 4 things, then I'm in a pretty good position. And so we wanted to make those 4 things practical and, to be frank, cool for the everyday person that's throughout the US. Like we wanted to add an element of like party element or the swag element to all of those things, and make wellness be something that is looked at as if it was kind of like hype beast, like something that makes wellness kind of dope. Because I think the way wellness is right now is there's a very big emphasis on it being like Zen and, you know, very heavy on nature and palm trees and, you know, that, which is dope. And I love all of that. But, you know, for like the people that live in like big cities and like the people that dwell urban, like there's not as much of a wellness avenue for them to go to. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to bring wellness to everybody and make it very like trendy and make it very like applicable to people's daily lives. So we do that event. Right now. We were doing it twice a year. So we did it once after Coachella, the day after Coachella, and that's our recovery event called Reset Festival. And then we did the second one after Labor Day, which was the second Reset Festival. And obviously, again, we were going to do it actually. RIP. This was going to be in 4 days here with Coachella not happening, but it'll happen again. It'll happen again as soon as all of this ends. And then aside from the being in person, along with those same 4 pillars, we put out a lot of content on YouTube and on Instagram. Our Instagram's been a little bit slower lately, obviously because of this as well. But on YouTube, we were doing a segment on training, on recovery, on nutrition, and on mindset once a week.
Very cool, man. And then you also have the hockey media company that you're working on. So tell us a little bit about that and what you're looking to do with it, what it's all about.
Yeah, so this hockey media brand that I'm rolling out in the next 2 weeks really just comes back to when I stopped playing hockey. I started posting a lot of like stick handling and stuff like I was mentioning before. But I almost got to the point when I started building Reset that I was like, dang, I really have to let go of this hockey player identity. Like I'm not a player anymore, so I don't need to be posting like me doing as much of this stick handling and stuff because I'm not even a skills coach anymore. So, but I do really want to be involved with hockey in some capacity. My dad's still in hockey. My little brother still plays hockey. All of my friends are still playing. So I want to be involved in somehow, but in a way that is more natural to me. And so for me, doing a hockey media brand, basically just like an Instagram that showcases all of the best in hockey, whether that's updates or highlights or training or coaching or even stats or just like collaborations with players that highlight like the personality of players. For me, why this is personal to me is because I think that hockey is 10 years behind in marketing. I think that MLB is also 10 years behind in marketing, but you look at like NBA and you look at NFL, in both of those sports, every one of those players has their own personal brand. If they walked into a restaurant, everybody would know who they are. Whereas in hockey, the top 5 guys could walk into a restaurant, you would have no clue who they are. So for me, I want to change that. I want to make hockey more well-known in each household and make players more well-known. And so for me, the best way to do that is to control the media, to embrace that and to showcase the players' personalities in my own way, and in a aesthetically pleasing way, in a culturally relevant way, in a way that caters to Gen Z and the younger demographic. And so I'm about to start rolling that out in about 2 weeks and working with some players and putting out some cool shit.
That's exciting, man, because I think you're nailing it on the head, because you're right. When you said that, it really connected with me, because I remember Adam Silver. So the basketball NBA's chairman, right? He started really introducing and allowing players to come to the games like dressed in the way they wanted to be dressed. Like, so fashion became a huge part of the NBA, right? So and it blew it up in terms of knowing the personalities of the players, and it allowed them to showcase another side of themselves outside of the athlete identity, which again is like it's an aspect of their life. It's all we see, and that's huge, right? So NBA's blowing up with it, and you're right. NFL is the same thing. Like, they have different styles, different themes to who they are, and you get to learn more and I guess digest who that person is a little bit more, and you connect with them on a deeper level. And I think you're right, man. Like, I don't follow hockey as much, but I think that's a huge part of it, right? Is that I don't know who the hell these guys are. They aren't represented that way. So like, there is that disconnect. It's like, well, if I don't know hockey, I don't know them. But if like, hey, maybe this dude has something similar to what I do or what I like, and it's like I connect on a deeper level.
Totally, man. And for me in my past, like my dad was an agent. My dad was actually Wayne Gretzky's agent, and
Oh
what
no shit.
my dad's mentor and boss was a man named Mark McCormick, who kind of created the player management and branding, like kind of branding golfers and then hockey players, and just like Wayne Gretzky and and building up these players' personal brands. And so for me, it's kind of like another thing that I'm passionate about, because it's in my family. It's something that my dad did, and it's something that I feel like I'm good at. But it's just like I have like almost a personal vendetta with hockey, because when I was a player, it was so frowned upon for me to be on social media. I was getting shit by coaches for posting on Instagram for way before there was like story and stuff, but just even, being active on Instagram or Twitter or Tumblr or any of these platforms that were emerging at the time. It was so negative to be on it, because there was the potential for the team to be looked at in a bad light, or for the player to not be looked at as him putting all of his focus on the sport, which is so ridiculous, because think about how much time people have in a day. But for me, it's like now all these other sports, NBA, NFL, those two in particular, like these guys that are the biggest guys in those sports, their brands are enormous, and they're all over social media. Like LeBron, who's great at it, posts like every day. He's doing TikTok. He's doing like his whole family's on it, and and that people love that, because you look at it and you're like, dude, this is the guy that's on the court that is like an absolute stud on the court, and he comes home and he's like this unreal dude off of the court too. Like this he's got style. He's like a family man. It just shows so, and that makes people want to buy tickets because they want to see that guy. And so for me, it's the same thing for hockey. It's like I would love for these guys that are on these teams to be showing that outside of the arena, like them hanging with their friends, hanging with their girlfriend, what they're interested in, what clothes they wear, what workouts they do, what they eat, that kind of stuff. Because for me, as now a consumer, as a fan, I would be watching this on social media and I'd be like, this is a guy that I really like now. I like this team. Like if it's a guy on Toronto, it might be like, I love Toronto now, or like Ottawa, I might love Ottawa more. And so for me, it's like the NHL, I don't know if they view it that way or don't view it that way, but they definitely haven't put that into effect and like really like try to nail that down. And so for me, that's what I want to do.
Well, hell, man, it's going that way. So they either got to adapt or not have a guy like you jump in and do something with it, right? I admire that. So let's dive in, man. Obviously, following you on Instagram, it's always cool to see what your morning routine. You'll get up, you'll go for a walk, all that kind of stuff, right? So tell us a little bit about your daily rituals, practices that you feel are kind of like non-negotiables for you, things that you do every single day for the most part that allow you to be more well-balanced, have a healthier, more fulfilling lifestyle, feel more energized, jacked up, and just basically be more excited about life. What are some of those things, man?
So like you said, my morning routine is huge. That's been something that getting out of playing and getting back into the real world and trying to find some structure within myself of like how I want to navigate my days now that my schedule has just been so fucked up and flipped upside down. Morning routine was something that really resonated with me and like stuck with me, because every morning you can wake up, and depending on how you slept, you'll have days where you wake up and you're just flustered and you're just like, whoa, I feel like my head's not in the greatest space. I feel like I just am not prepared for the day. And then you'll have days that are great. Either way, for me, when I wake up and I start my morning routine and I finish it, by the end of that morning routine, I'm back at square one with a clean slate, no matter how I slept. I might not have the exact same energy if I had like a terrible sleep, but at least my head is clear, I'm present, and I know what I need to do. And so like what my morning routine contains is I wake up, I meditate for 5 or 10 minutes. I use an app called Headspace. It's free. Anybody can use it. So that's what I do first. I do Headspace for about 5 to 10 minutes. And then from there, I'll drink some water with lemon, with ginger. That's good for digestive system. It's also good for immune system. So I'll crush that really quick, crush like a glass of water. And then from there, I'll take that water with me and I'll go on a walk. And the walk is probably my favorite part of the whole thing. It's so crucial for me now, and I don't even really understand why. I'm sure people that know more about it would be able to say it's nature and like just being present, whatever. But dude, like something so simple as just going on a 5-minute walk and getting outdoors in the morning. I come back from that walk, I open the door back to the house again, and when I get back in that house, I'm so ready for the day. It's insane. And so right after I do that, I usually end up either journaling or planning. I used to be a big journaler. I used to like write a ton in my journal, and even have like journals that have prompts in it. There's one called Best Self. That's a good journal. Now I'm more of just like doing my planner. So I'll write like my goals that I need to accomplish. I'll write like the schedule for the day. I'll write like what I need to do outside of my own like work stuff, like my personal things that I need to get done with that day. And then I'll write like a little bit of things that I'm grateful for. So a little bit of gratitude. And then from there, I go and do some sort of movement. So that it'll be like, right now I've been working out a lot in the morning, but when I had clients and stuff before, I was working out in the evening. So, but I'll try to do some sort of movement. So if that's even just like literally 3 minutes of like a yoga flow, or 3 minutes of stretching or like dynamic stretching, that's great as well if you can't do like a longer workout. But I'll try to like hit a quick little workout in the morning, and then that's it. And then I go on with the day and I get going.
I love it, man. That jacked me up to do I have morning routines, right? And just sometimes you fall out of them, and you're right. Like I'll have early clients, and it's like, hell, man, do I want to get up half hour beforehand? But it's so valuable, and just kind of hearing how passionate you are about talking about this kind of stuff. And when I have done it, and I do it, it's a different game. I'll do the lemon water. I'll get up. I'll clear my head. Done all that stuff, and it makes a world of a difference. So. Yeah, man, that's a healthy routine, man. And again, people I think forget how important is the structure, I guess, that morning for yourself. Because that's the start of the day, man. If you leave the house all flustered and agitated, you're bringing that energy with you, man. Like it's tough. It's tough to rebound when you're so flustered and pissed off and disconnected from what you have to do. Because that might mean that you don't bring your healthy pre-made meals. Now you're buying shit. You're spending money you don't want to. And those things lead to lethargy. Then you come home because you're tired, skip your workout. Like, there's so many compound effects behind having a disconnected morning routine. So I think that's a massive thing that you kind of attributed to. And throughout the day, man, do you have anything else you kind of like, any like habits or tips more in terms of structure, increase energy, or is that kind of like your baseline that propels you to a fairly disciplined day?
So I would say it depends on the day. Like obviously, as you know, as a business owner, like things shift. And so it depends on what is going on for that day. But another thing, that sunlight has been a big thing for me. So I think that's another big thing with why the walk is impactful for me. So the only other thing that I have that's scheduled into my actual day, that's every day on my calendar, is that I think it's 4 p.m. on the dot. I have to get sunlight. So it's usually right around when the work day is kind of getting slower. I might have like a couple more things that I need to do, but at around 4 o'clock, I'll go out on like another walk, or not necessarily like a whole walk. Sometimes I'll just go like on the balcony and like sit out there and just like hang for a couple minutes, maybe listen to a song or something, or FaceTime a friend or just something, but just get some sort of sunlight around 4 o'clock. And that's really it. Obviously drinking, like I would say in terms of like things that I do every day that make me feel good, is water is probably the biggest one. Staying hydrated. I have my hydro flask right over there. Yeah, exactly, like you're holding. So that's probably the biggest. Sam, my girlfriend and partner, is a little bit more like dialed in with, she eats at a certain time every day. So she'll eat a snack almost every 2 hours or so. I'm not as strict with that. But really just like if I'm eating pretty clean and I'm staying hydrated and I'm getting that morning routine going and I'm getting sunlight later on in the day, it's a pretty good structure for a day. It's a pretty good structure for me to navigate.
Yeah, I think something that kind of going off what you're saying is, every day looks different in some regard, but like you're practicing healthy health practices, and people that are listening to this are like kind of maybe looking for that one answer. Like there is no one answer, obviously, right? I think the best approach is if you feel like shit, change it up. You feel great, keep doing it. I can't go wrong with that formula, right?
Bro, 100%. Like, it just go. Self-awareness is so big because it's like, what works for me? Like, am I gonna like practically wake up every day and, you know, crush this whole morning routine, or am I somebody that doesn't have time for like that long of one, and I can pick like one or two of those things and like actually do those every day for a year? And so I think like you got to really understand what's best for you and what's going to make you the most efficient. Friends that like their big thing for them is at 5 p.m. or 7 p.m., whatever it is, when the baseball league is on, they sit down and they have a beer watching their baseball team. Right? And that's like they do every night, every game that their team is. And that's like majorly influences the week. And so, I mean, I don't really judge. It's like, for me, it works. You got to find what works for you and what makes you feel like you're at the best that you can be. And if that's something that's different and it's not traditional, run with it.
Love it, man. I think that's a great way to end this bad boy off. That's some awesome advice, man. You're doing some great things, man, out in the West Coast. Again, love watching it. I think you're someone who, you know, people can get a lot of value from following and kind of engaging with. So where can people follow you? Where are you at? Let people know your handle, all that good stuff, buddy.
Thank you for having me. First of all, I appreciate it a ton. Always love talking to you. My Instagram is at JT Barnett, Barnett. You can find Reset, the brand that I was talking about, on here. On Instagram, it's at Reset with an underscore afterwards. And also on YouTube, our YouTube channel is Reset Performance. I can't say the name of the hockey brand, but if you follow me on Instagram, you will see me talking about it a ton, coming very shortly. And if you listen to this and there's anything that I can help you with, please send me a message. I love to converse with people over DM. I'm always going to help. So appreciate you guys for listening.
Give these guys a cliffhanger, eh, man? I like it. All right, man. This has been awesome, guys. This is the Fear of Being Average podcast with JT Barnett. We'll catch you next time, guys.